right, welcome back to my podcast. This is episode 2 of recording my memoirs, or just talking about lessons that I've learned in business and in life for my son. You don't have a name yet. Right now, your mom's 14 weeks pregnant with you, so right now I'm just starting to record different things that I would want to teach you throughout your life. Just starting to think about it, and it's becoming more and more real pretty much as every passing day. Your mom is actually finally starting to show, so I'm getting really excited about it. So we'll go ahead and get into it. So one of the biggest things that I've focused on in my life is remembering history, and also learning from other people's mistakes. So this is one of the quotes that I love. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. I believe, let me see who said this quote. That's George Santayana. What I love about this quote is it talks about the patterns of life. It talks about human psychology. It talks about that things are going to come back around, and there's seasons and there's cycles, and you just got to examine the trends of where you're at currently and what's going on, and think about how people reacted before and what outcomes those were. Were those favorable outcomes, or maybe those outcomes weren't exactly what you were wanting? So how do you pivot that and try to figure out how to position yourself to have a better outcome? Something that I've remembered, and one of the favorite things in history, Napoleon tried to storm Russia. During the Napoleonic Wars, he tried to take Moscow, and he went and tried to fight in Russia during the winter, and that was ultimately his downfall. Fast forward through time, Hitler tried to do the exact same thing. He went and tried to fight in Russia in the winter and was sorely defeated because of the same issue, supply chain issues. Talks about how important supply chains are. But if he had just studied history, maybe that wouldn't have outcome. Now, granted, thank goodness he didn't study history, because Hitler was a bad dude and we did not want him to win the war. But there are other instances throughout time. One that I'm experiencing right now is the crypto boom, and it is very similar to the .com bubble and boom during the late 1990s, early 2000s. And I've studied it pretty intensely, and it's the same. The new technology adoption, mass adoption, and unknown where it's going to land causes massive expansion, which means people can make money quickly. But it will also mean ultimately the projects that are not rooted in good business principles will most likely die. And we saw that in the .com bubble, and I believe we're going to see that in crypto. And I don't know what you're going to be dealing with in your lifetime and what pattern that's going to be, but there is going to be a technology that comes out during your lifetime, maybe not generational, but it's going to have similar effects. Always look for what actually delivers value and betters people's lives. Particular cryptocurrencies that I'm saving and really I really like, Helium is one of those. Provides a 5G network. I can quantify how valuable that is. So when you're looking at investments, when you're looking at where should I put my money, what's a good project, whether in a technology space or even in a business venture, look and see what the value delivery is, and then see if you can quantify that value delivery. And if you can, that should be your profit margins. Whatever value delivery you're doing, that should be your profits. And if you're delivering a ton of value, it's going to be really good for you. Some of the big projects I'm working on right now, we're getting past the saving, and we're now getting into the building phases of your mom's and my career. And I'm looking in supplemental logistics spaces. You probably know by now, your dad works in logistics. So I work on supply chains. I've done analytics, designing supply chain solutions. You name it, I've been involved in it. And because I understand that business, I want to invest our money into businesses that I get. So one of them is going to be truck parking. I'm still working on figuring out how to automate that. I think I have some ideas. And I think there's a way that I could very cheaply go to some warehouses and get a good lease where, I mean, the commercial real estate is good. It's going to be fantastic. What's nice is commercial land is, well, I'm not buying commercial land. I'm buying non-deed restricted land. That difference allows me to kind of, do what I want with my land and set up a commercial business, even though it's not classified as commercial. So there's pros and cons to all of it. That's one of the ones I'm looking at because right now buying property is, for either for Airbnb or for regular rental is so high. The margins were much greater before, but the margins are razor thin now. So I want to tend away from things that are razor thin and want to look at things that have good cash flow. I also, my main job, I'm the program manager at Coop by Ryder. I don't know if I'm still at Coop or still at Ryder once you start understanding what this is, but it's a great company, and I work on the Airbnb of trucking. That's kind of what I've started, and there's huge potentials for those type of assets as well. They're depreciating, so you get some tax benefits, but the cash flow is king. And as much as I want a good ROI, I really, really, really want just good cash flow. The big goal this year is to find enough money so that your mom can get away and kind of bring you back to the quote. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Your grandfather, when he was married to my mother, had a little bit of a controlling side to him, and I want to kind of tend away from that. He's much better now. I'm sure he's being a great grandfather to you. But ultimately, I want your mom to have freedom because I think the lack of freedom or the perceived lack of freedom that my mom had ultimately led to their divorce and her resenting. So I want to do my best to not only make sure that your mom doesn't resent me for anything, but also to make sure that she feels loved and she has freedom and she has the ability to be independent or do whatever she wants to do. So that's my main focus right now is trying to replace her income so then she has the freedom to do what she wants. I think the first time I actually heard this quote was your great grandfather. He came over from the Philippines, immigrant. So I'm a second generation American, and your grandfather came over to the Philippines with great grandma, my grandma, with $500, and of course they had their MDs too. So they were able to build a medical empire. They were able to have tons and tons of real estate and replicate it. So I am remembering the past and that, but that's more of a good repeating that I want to do. This has more of a negative connotation to it, and it talks about the mistakes of history. So, one of the big things I always try to do is to learn from other people's mistakes. I would prefer to do that rather than try to make my own mistakes. So, whether it's the way people treat each other, the way that you take your career path. My father, a mistake that he made was staying in an industry too long. He didn't recognize when there was going to be a pivot and technology was going to take over his job. And he was an auditor, so it wasn't like something crazy, or it wasn't something like manual, like he was working at a factory or something. He was an auditor, and technology was able to come behind and remove his job. But part of the mistakes that he did too was he didn't continue his skill set and better his skill set and make himself an asset to any company that he works for. So it made it very difficult for him to find a job for a long time. So I want to always position myself as an asset and really try to learn how to be a better leader, a better employee, how to do different tasks more efficiently. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about value delivery. It's about value delivery. So, that's kind of the big topics that I wanted to talk about. Reading your history book. Another really fantastic book to read is the Bible. Very similar to what I'm doing for you. In the Bible, in Psalms, there is a father talking to his son and talking about lessons that he's learned. So this is also it's the living word of God, but it's also history. There's a lot of things to unpack in here, a lot of amazing stories and parables that teach us about life. So ultimately, study your Bible, abide in the Lord, read about history. Reading is key. One book I'm going to start reading here soon. It's called Make Your Bed. Little Things Can Change Your Life and Maybe the World. Admiral William H. McRaven, U.S. Navy retired. That's the book. That's the book. So I'm actually just about to start reading it. I believe this is based on his Texas commencement speech, which I saw a while back, and he was a Navy SEAL, and he talks about discipline and creating discipline habits within yourself to be successful. And it's the little things that matter. It's the little details. It's the little things in the past. Oh, goodness, I am tired. It is 1 o'clock in the morning, but it's the little things in the past that make the most difference. And whether it's my near past, like my father, who didn't, better his skills like he probably should, or history, it's the little details of how you act on a regular basis and how you are being mindful and thoughtful about what you're trying to do. So you have to constantly be thinking about your actions, your words, and what's happening, and be extremely mindful of what you're doing. Because if you're not, and you stop being mindful of that, that's when people start getting hurt. That's when you start making mistakes. That's when you start backsliding in your career. Empathy, helpfulness, and just being there for people has taken my career a long way. Excuse me. And it really comes from this principle of remembering the past and remembering what needs to be done, and understanding how to innovate. A lot of what innovation is a repeat of the past, or capitalizing on a past trend for a future result. So, whether it's technology based, whether it's an analysis for a stock or stock analysis up and down the road, it's all about remembering the past and understanding where that is. Remembering the past too is remembering where you came from. So, a little background, your great-grandparents were immigrants. They came over on the boat. My dad lived here, and then I'm one of 6 that strives to be successful. And I broke away from where I was at in Pensacola. I wanted to make a life for you and your mom and any other kiddos that come behind. And I wanted to do it myself. I didn't want to be reliant or beholden to anybody. So that's really what I focus on. And I remember the times where it was really tough. I remember the small apartments that we had. I remember sometimes not eating so your mother could eat. And different things like that help me. They help me realize I don't want to go back there, and helps me realize what do I need to do to maintain and grow and continue to grow. Because if you remember being stagnant, it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling backsliding. It's not a good feeling standing still. So, always be trying to improve yourself, son. Always be looking backwards as well as forwards. Try to remember the past and not repeat the bad stuff, but repeat the good stuff. This quote is inherently negative, but I think there's a positive side too, where if someone's being ultra successful with a technique or a style, don't get mad, replicate. Be part of it too. Be part of the solution. Because I think there's a ton of value in doing that. So, just to bring it home, deliver value, look for value, and just, remember where you came from, remember what's happened, and you come from a strong family. You got a strong name. Your middle name is your great-grandfather's first name. So there's no expectations for you to fill, no shoes for you to fill. But we know that you're going to be hyper successful. We know that because of the genes, just because of who we are as Honkos. We're very driven individuals. So get ready for it. This concludes this first lesson that I want to talk about. I'm definitely going to, the next one I believe is going to be on don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. That was your grandfather's favorite quote. And I'll go in more depth into it. But at the end of the day, son, read Psalms. It's very similar to the format of what I'm doing for you, where it's communicating you stories and information. It's exactly what Psalms is for the two unknown people there. I believe one of them is definitely God. I just don't know who the other one is. I think the only one we have confirmed is Jacob. But thank you so much for taking the time. If you've watched this video, it's so much appreciated. Please like, share, and comment if you want. But frankly, this isn't really for you. I don't care if this channel grows at all. This is for my son to watch. If, for heaven forbid, I'm not there, or if he ever has questions. Ideally, this format of this podcast is going to tell him what our morals are. And, I'm a strong Christian libertarian, probably right-leaning libertarian, for very logical and good reasons. So, yeah. Thank you so much, son. I love you, son. I cannot wait to meet you. I'm really excited. All right. Have a good night. I hope you have success in life and in business. Stay tuned for the next episode. Have a good one.